actually. I think he might talk about it a little bit. He still works with us, but not on the library itself. And I think it's been like a year, maybe even longer. So bear with me if I sound a little rusty. It's been a while since I talked publicly, especially in English. And welcome everyone. Today we're here to present Taiga 4, the next major release of our library that we worked on for a while. And I will walk you through the changes that you will see going from third major release to this one, and how you can migrate. And I will be happy to answer your questions later regarding Taiga, maybe previous version or the new features that we used, or even just Angular questions if you want, because me and Roman are Google developer experts for Angular, and we will be happy to help you out with understanding some things that you might want clarified. So welcome everybody.
Well, I want to understand if, I think we are live, but I don't know if it started correctly on the right moment. But anyway,
yeah, I see it on my phone, so I think it goes well, and people start posting comments in the chat. I will show you the little presentation, go over it, and you can post your questions in chat, and after that, Roman will scan through them and ask me, and I will respond. So let me start sharing. And there it is.
Right. Yes, we can see it.
So welcome everybody once again. Today I will be showing you Taiga 4. It's a next major step in our library that we've been developing in open source for many years, actually, and closed source for a while before version 2. Version 1 was closed source. And version 3 released, I think, a year and a half ago in September, probably. And we started specifically preparing version 4 in December, so it took us a while. And I'm really happy how it worked out. We had a lot of good code changes. I'm very proud of the code base that we managed to get. And I'm excited to share it with you and walk you through the changes and why they happened. So let's go and see what's our plan. First of all, we had experimental package for some time. While we were working on the next major release, we started to develop new approaches to components, and we tested them in experimental package, and it's available in version 3 right now. So everything that you can see in experimental package in version 3 moved to stable, replacing the old implementations of these components, such as buttons, badges, chipses, and many others. We can go over that list if you'd like after the presentation and see what's there, because maybe you didn't want to try the experimental package before, and because you weren't sure that it's stable to use. Right now, they are mostly the same as they are in 4.0. So if you're still on version 3 and not planning to migrate yet, you can start using them, because their API will not change. They are now already stable. Next, I will walk you through a little bit around Taiga family. So Taiga UI is a big UI kit library, but it's not the only product we work on. And we have a whole organization on GitHub called Taiga Family, where we have a lot of other libraries that all work together to provide you tools to create easy to use, customizable, and flexible UI. And they also been updated with this major release, so I will talk about that a little bit. Next big change that happened with Taiga is our approach to icons, and I'm very happy to finally move to that mechanics, because old one was a little bit hard to maintain. It used the SVG source code. You had to provide sanitizer and all that. So now it's much simpler. Also, some things changed in CSS. We had to rename all our CSS variables, so our Taiga theme is using different variable names now. it was synced with our internal theme that we used for our products internally for our theme. So there is not going to be any mismatch in naming, and now you will see new variables there. It's a little bit simpler than it was, I think, and it's all covered in the migration script, which I will show later. And most of the things that are cool and new happened because we moved from Angular 12 to Angular 16. I will talk about that when we get to that bullet, and why we used version 16, not the latest, and so on. And one other change that is pretty interesting is if you use micro-frontends, we have changed a little bit internals of our library to improve your experience. Micro-frontends is kind of a hot topic right now, so a lot of people show interest in that, and we try to accommodate their needs as well. And I know that our internal projects also use micro-frontends here and there, and that's going to be helpful for us as well. And that's a benefit of open source. People bring ideas that we might not have thought of before, and they will be beneficial to our company as well. So that's a pretty cool feature of working in public. And the last thing is migrations. We try to make it as smooth for you as possible, but it's, of course, not fully automatic because you cannot migrate some very complex cases, but we try our best. And if you have some issues with migrations, feel free to write us in Discord for Angular. We have a section there for Taiga UI, or in Telegram. I think Roman might post links to that later, add to the description of this broadcast, so you can share with us your issues and we can help you out. And of course, you can just go to GitHub, create issues, create discussions there. So first, the experimental package moved to stable. There are a few interesting components that we added while still working on 3.x. These are segment controls, cards, and new skeletons, and all that. So everything that you see here is now stable, and a lot more. We can go over the list later on. And this is something we plan to stick to. We will be working on new features and testing them in public with experimental package. So something that we work on will be released for you to try, even if the API might change. So be careful if you're working with experimental package, but it's something for us to test the components in our pet projects, in our internal projects, and to see if it's a good developer experience, if they have everything you need to implement your designs. And the second thing that is kind of mirroring the experimental package is now we will have also a legacy package, and it would contain things that might not be that easy to move away from. So you might want to migrate to the next major release, but not change your code base too much. So those complex things will remain deprecated in legacy package for the duration of the major release. That way you can already update your products to the latest version and reap benefits, and not change the code base too much and maybe gradually migrate later. So in legacy package, currently we have all the text field controls that we had in 3.x, and they are pretty much the same as they were. And in a stable modern 4.0 version, we don't have all of them yet, because we have a basic text field component that uses new approach, and it's going to take us some time to migrate all of the controls like date pickers and all that to the new approach. And also we want to redesign them a little bit. So our designers working on the new specifications for those components. Currently we have input phone using new text field, input card, and we will gradually migrate to those new components. So for now, when you use Taiga 4, you can continue using all the text fields you had. Just don't worry if you see that they are coming from a legacy package. Right now, this is a proper way to use them. And when we will create a new stable version of particular component, we will deprecate them in the legacy package. So you will see that it's stricken through in your imports, and that means that you can migrate to the new implementation. But they will be there unchanged, and if you see some problems with legacy components, we will address them. They are not going to be developed for new features, and they will be gone in next major release. But that's going to be like in half a year, I hope. Previously, it took us quite a while to do the next major release, and we tried to put a lot of things in it. And now with that legacy package and experimental package, we can make this transition a little bit smoother. So we will try to do major releases a little bit more often, probably try to stick to the Angular release schedule and do it every half a year or something. And we will try to stick to the latest long-term support version of Angular. I will talk about that a little bit later. Now, Taiga family. So first product in our collection of libraries is Mosquito. I don't know if you heard about it. Probably if you follow me, because I post about it quite often. It's framework agnostic masking library for inputs. And you can use it with vanilla JavaScript or with React, with Angular and Vue. We provide a little wrappers for those frameworks. And of course, my favorite is Angular because I love Angular, but we also have a directive for Vue and a hook for React. And I know that this library was chosen as a official recommendation for masking by Ionic, and you probably heard about Ionic. It's quite a huge library, and we were really glad to see that our API and approach to masking was met with such praise, I guess. And it's really good to see that people start using this library because, when we worked on UIKit, we had, of course, ran into need for a mask solution for input phone, for numbers and credit cards and so on. And we tried to use the open source solutions that are there. And eventually we thought that it would be great to create our own solution to fit to make sure that it can satisfy all our needs in very, very flexible cases, because you never know what you're going to need. And I'm very proud of how it turned out. I was not the lead engineer here. It was made by Nikita, a person from our Taiga team. And this library is something that I would like people to try and see if that helps them with their interfaces. So what changed with that in the next major release? First of all, we added a little dependency called deep phone number. It's a Google library that maintains masks for phone numbers, because previously we had to maintain it ourselves, and we cannot really follow all the hundreds of masking for phone numbers, especially if something like that already is available in open source. So that's going to be the only external dependency in Taiga that is not something we maintain, but it's a library that Google maintains, so we probably can trust that it's going to be up to date. So all it does is provides us with metadata for phone number, for input phone number. So if you don't use input phone, you can just ignore that. It's the only place where it's used. And all our controls that use masking finally migrated to Mosquito. And if you have any issues with mask, you can file issues there, and we will take a look at them. So this is something I'm really happy about, because previously we had to use a library that stopped being updated for a while, and now we finally completely migrated to our own solution. So with 4 major release, we also have our other libraries that you see logos on the screen. First is Web APIs for Angular. You might have heard about it. It's our a little open source project, probably the first thing me and Roman did. It's a collection of tiny libraries to use web APIs comfortably in Angular applications. So it has little packages for like resize observer, intersection observer, something more interesting like web audio API, web media API. So you can take a look and see if some particular API you want is there. Maybe it can help you with your Angular apps. If something is missing there, you can try filing an issue. And we plan to expand this collection. It's quite a big collection already, but there's a lot of web APIs that we might want to tap into one day. So it was updated and synced with version. So it's also now for something, all of those packages there. And they have moved to peer dependencies. They are previously installed with Taiga as direct dependencies, and that could cause some issues if you're already using a newer one and you can get two versions of the same library in your node modules. So now they're all peer deps and they should be automatically resolved by npm, or you can just manually install the versions you like. The second one is that handsome black dude, which is Polymorpheus. It's a library that first was created out of Taiga, I think before Taiga even got to open source. This is a really cool thing. It's kind of like a universal outlet. So I'll explain a little bit. Imagine you have some flexible component that is not that does not have a particular presentation inside of it. So you can provide your own template to it. That's typically how it's done in Angular. So you can provide ng template, but sometimes the template is a little bit too much, and just a string would be fine. And templates, they react to context. So you can make a particular template that gets like an item that you want to show as a context with a name and avatar URL, something like that. So another option you can use is a function that gets the context as an input and then it returns a string. That's really helpful if you just need to manipulate strings, like maybe concatenate name and last name together. And the third option that you have in Angular is dynamic components. So it's a ng component outlet, the directive that you can use for dynamic components, or ng template outlet that you can use for templates, or you can use interpolation with curly braces to just show strings or functions. And the Polymorpheus outlet is just like one directive that does all of that automatically. So you don't need to worry about what content are you providing. If it's a function or a template or a component, just pass it on to this one thing and it would instantiate it properly and keep track of the dependency injections and all that. So it's a very cool thing that is at the heart of customization in Taiga UI. And it's a separate library, so you can use it. It was also migrated to standalone and updated with Angular 16, which allowed us to pass custom injectors to templates as well. So that's a bit technical. So anyway, that's another library that was updated to number 4. And the last one, we don't really have a logo for it for now. It's just a plug there. It's a plugins collection. I wrote an article about it and I'll link it at the end. It's a collection of event plugins for Angular that simplify a lot of various small things and provide you with functionality that was not present in Angular before. Basically, if you don't know, that you can extend Angular event management with your own plugins. So when you write like key down dot enter to listen to enter key presses, this is done through a plugin that understands the key presses, and you can extend it with your own plugins like click.prevent to like prevent default for the event and so on. And this is a collection of useful little plugins that help us improve our developer experience and also make some things much easier to do. I really recommend you to try it and see the article about it if you're interested. And it comes with Taiga UI because we rely on it heavily, and all you need to do is add it to providers when you bootstrap your application. But that's done automatically with our scripts. That's it about the Taiga family, and the next step I want to discuss is icons. And this time we moved from feather icons to Lucid icons. In Taiga, we previously used feather package. It's an open source package with icons, but it was not maintained that much. And Lucid is basically a fork, community fork that was extended a lot. So on this screenshot, you see it's 1,480 icons. I think it like 100 more now. So all these icons are now available for you to use in Taiga, and you can search for icon names on the Lucid site and just copy it and use. And also we added just recently with 4.1 material icons package and the font awesome icons package. So now you can use those two icon sets in Taiga out of the box. Just add the package and use proper names. There are demo examples on our portal, so you can take a look. You can even replace the icons that are used inside components, such as chevrons and dropdowns, or like calendar icons and date pickers and such. So all of this is configurable. And this is all possible because we changed our approach to icons. Before we had TUI SVG component that was using SVG tag use to inline icons as symbols, so you can color them with CSS. There are some issues with that, and so you couldn't put icons to the CDN because it only works across the same domain, and you had to use sanitizer because Angular does not understand SVG source code, and if you want to use SVG icons that are not in our set or use them on CDN, we had to download them and inline the source code. That means we have to sanitize them, and it means that there's a lot of configuration there. You have to provide your own sanitizer and all that. Now everything is much, much simpler. It's all used in CSS with CSS masks. And how it works like right now, it's a new component to icon. You pass the icon name. The naming convention also changed. It's now @TUI dot and then the name of the icon. And what it does underneath is it resolves the icon path by name. You can configure that with your own CDN. You can provide your own path for assets or your own resolver for icon names if you use custom icons and want to refer to them by name. And it adds an after pseudo element there and uses CSS mask on that. So it's basically just a little overlay that has this icon as a mask in the middle, and that uses current color to color it. So you can use CSS color to change the colors. And what's cool about it is that it doesn't even require a separate element in DOM. You see it's used in after element. So this helped us to change how icons are shown in components. I will talk about that a little bit later when we go to host directives. It's like my favorite feature of new Angular versions, and something I would like to share with you. So in terms of CSS variables, first we got these 3 directives that are core to how you configure Taiga. It's TUI theme dark. To use dark theme, it's now much easier than before. Previously we had like TUI mod directive and a dark theme component that attaches different CSS, but now it's just one attribute that you can use to enable dark theme, and everything is done through overriding CSS variables. Also, there's a new directive called TUI platform, which you can set, and some of our components have different behavior based on the platform that you're using, if it's a web or iOS or Android. And by default, it's not implemented. By default, you use web everywhere. But in our add-on mobile package, you can attach particular styles that would change the behavior of some elements, like, for example, switches, checkboxes. They will imitate native elements on those platforms. So that's pretty cool. And obviously, it's opt-in. You don't have to use that. And the TUI appearances are new directive that is used all across the Taiga UI. Previously, we had a wrapper directive that acted similarly, but now it's used everywhere, not just in buttons and text fields, also in badges, chipses, and anywhere you want to place it. Basically, that's a directive that is responsible for showing interactive state of an element. So if you hover it with the mouse, you want it to change color. But for example, if you have a button with a drop down, you might want to show like the button is pressed while the drop down is open, even if the mouse is not on the button. So this is something that can be done with that directive. And also you see that it's to appearance icon. So it applies icon appearance to a particular element. And the Taiga theme is basically composed of CSS variables and all those different appearances that you can use in buttons, badges, and all that. And you can extend it with your own appearances in global styles. We have some some less and SCSS mixins for you to simplify that. So this is something that is pretty much internal implementation, but probably deserves a separate walkthrough that I will not do now, and move on. And the CSS variables have changed names. So this is a little piece of our global theme now. And all of those variables that you had previously will be automatically migrated to those new namings. So it should be seamless for you.
Oh, Alex, let me stop you for a moment. We need to reload our call because we have
Sure.
a small technical issue. Let me show you all our background image, and we'll be here in a moment. All right. Let me change a couple of settings here, and we can continue. Oh, okay. I think everything works well again, and I also noticed that we failed a little bit with smooth start, so our greetings wasn't on the stream. Anyway, if you have if you see any troubles, any issues with the broadcast, please let us know. Maybe we could fix it. But if I see it right, we can see Alex's presentation, and we can hear him well. So it's the most important thing here. So Alex,
right.
You can continue.
Sure. So the next thing I want to talk about is the new Angular version. Like I said, previously we used Angular 12, and I know it's not that popular among open source developers to use older version of the framework. Everybody wants to be on the edge and not using the outdated stuff. But the thing is, if you publish a library using a particular Angular version, it is most likely usable up to the latest version. But if you use the latest to publish the library, apps that are on the previous release might not be able to use that library. So Taiga 3, even though it was published with Angular 12, was absolutely usable, even Angular 17 and I think 18 as well, and except probably for the zoneless feature. So our goal here is to provide a great library for as much people as many people as possible, and as many projects as possible. Our library is used internally in our company in like over 100 projects. Not everybody has the time to maintain the latest Angular version, but they all want to have the latest Taiga So that's important for us to not go ahead of the applications that are using our library, and that's why we decide to stick to the long-term support version of Angular, which is now 16, and in Taiga 5 we'll probably bump it to 17 in half a year or something like that. So most of the features actually are available in 16th, except for the signal inputs that we also really want to try, and we'll definitely be glad to update to Angular 17. But right now, Angular 16 brought us a few really cool features that we used heavily, and these are standalone components. Finally, Taiga has moved to standalone completely, so you don't have any modules in Taiga anymore. It doesn't mean you have to be standalone yourself. You can import standalone components in modules as well. So that's not something that you need to worry about, but it's cool for us because standalone components open up a few interesting things such as like deferred loading, host directives, and all that. So this is great to be on the latest pattern for component creation. And like I said, host directives is the new feature. It was added, I think, in Angular 15. And just today, I published an article about it on Angular Space. And shout out to the team there for quickly reviewing the article. So I can mention it here. And the link to this article will be added to the stream. I think it's a feature that does not get enough attention. I tried looking at the other big libraries such as Material, PrimeNG, and Gzoro in their source code on GitHub. I didn't find any usages of host directives really, and it's a shame because this feature is particularly great for UI kits and reusable code because it allows you to decompose complex tasks into seamlessly integrated pieces, and I really like that feature. And we used it a lot in Taiga, and hopefully my article might spark an interest in you to try it out, and maybe it will be helpful for your particular needs as well. Next thing is signals. Angular 16 introduced signals, and we used it a little bit here and there. Unfortunately, we don't yet have signal inputs, and that's like the most important part because basically a lot of things in your components react to how to what inputs are passed, and signals with computable allow to improve performance over the getters and such. And it would be really cool to rewrite everything to signal inputs once they are available for us, and looking forward to that. And there's a lot of other helpful things that come with new Angular, such as self-closing tags and other pipeline improvements in Angular CLI and all that. So I don't want to put a lot of details on you here. So let's go over the most important things. Standalone, like I said, everything in Taiga is now standalone. It's easy to use and easy to instantiate if you use the dynamic components. Also, it makes all our examples on the demo self-sufficient. Finally, you can just open them in StackBlitz, and everything you need is already there in imports. You don't have to go and try to understand what's needed and what's not, because previously we had to import all the modules with StackBlitz just so everything is available. Right now, all those examples are copy-paste working, and that's a great improvement. That made our add-on doc much easier. It's also open source library that we have in Taiga that we use to create the demo portal for Taiga and for Mosquito. And now it's much easier to create examples there because everything is standalone. We can implement a few cool practices there, like lazy loading the components by dynamic imports and all that. So that's pretty cool. It makes it easier for us to create examples, and that means we will have better documentation, more examples, more easily accessible for you code samples that you can copy paste. And in case that some feature requires multiple imports, we added the arrays like that as const, you see. And for example, WebStorm would suggest you import that array if you try to use text field instead of importing everything there one by one. And that brings us to this a little change here. You don't need to worry about if you're importing a button or a directive. The postfix that we used previously is gone. So button is now to button, and I will explain a little bit later why it's important shift for us. And so the golden rule for you, if you try to import something and it imports something with the postfix, like you see text field component, it's probably not the one you need, even though we can, but you can just import text field without any postfix and it would import the array there. Taiga is very tree shakeable, so don't worry about it. It would just import everything easily for you, unless you're using some micro-frontends and super optimization there. It should also tree shake the directives that you don't use. So that's a cool little developer experience improvement there. So host directives, how do we use them and what they allow us? So previously we had like a button, for example, and inside that it would be some template that applies the directives there. So you see that to appearance directive is applied not to the button itself, but to the span. And that's because previously we could not apply directives to host elements. If we wanted to use some directives there, we had to use template, and inside that template, a wrapping DOM element that we will apply those directives to. And that's not ideal because, first of all, you have to complicate the DOM structure for that just for composition. And it's hard to configure those directives because you have to drill all the inputs there. And if you wanted to inject the directive in the content, you will not be able to do so because that directive is not available for DI. It's inside the view of component. So host directives improve that a lot. And instead of passing inputs for icons, for example, or for appearance, and drilling them to components inside, we now have just a button. It has content inside and before and after element for icons. So all things in pink here are host directives. And that means that we no longer actually need a component at all. It can be just a directive because there is no need for any template there. And that's why button became a directive rather than component. And to not introduce any confusion there if it's a directive or a component, we just decided to drop the postfix completely. And for example, if you remember in Taiga 3, there also was an input called show loader on the button that allow you to show a spinner while the button loads instead of disabling it like that. And in this case, this is actually a component. So button is a directive, but a button with a loading input is a component that adds the spinner there. So that's a cool example of composition that if you don't use the spinner anywhere and you just use buttons, it will not get into your bundle at all. And you will not have any complicated DOM structure there. And it's easy to override paddings, fonts, and other things you might want to override in the components if they are all exposed on the host, if it's not some nested DOM structure. And that's a great improvement for customization. Another example is in host directives is hosted dropdown. So previously, if we wanted to apply dropdown directives to like a button, for example, and combine multiple directives there, we had to use template again to apply them to a wrapping component. Wrapping DOM element. For example, hosted dropdown is just a Taiga UI dropdown that also maintains its open state if you click away or focus away using keyboard, or if the host of the dropdown gets obscured by some other element or you scrolled it off screen, it would automatically close the dropdown. So to combine all those directives together, we had to use the template. But now it can be just a host directive. So that's how it looks now. It's just a button with a new host directive to dropdown open that applies all the necessary directions together. And you don't have to pass any inputs there because host directives can expose inputs to be available on host. Like here you can see to dropdown. allows you to pass the content, but it is automatically applied in the host directive there. So that is another big improvement in my eyes, because now it's much simpler to create interfaces with complex composition there. And I hope you can check out my last article about that, and I'll link them all at the end there. Nice. This is nice. I really like that change. And so, like I said, most components are now directives because they don't need any internal structure. That makes them a lot simpler to use and to customize. Host directives that we use are Mosquito directive. It's applied for input card, for example, to mask properly your credit card number and phone numbers and expiration dates and all that. There's a 2 drop-down open that I've shown. Appearance and icons, these are very often used, and this allows us to use the same directive across all components, such as buttons, tabs, chips, and badges. They all use appearance and icons, so every component now allows you to enter icon start, icon end, like that, and apply those icons easily. And there's also a TUI group that groups elements together with rounded corners, like in accordion, for example. This is a great thing for decomposition, because it's basically something like providers that also have access to host and to allow you to pass inputs to configure them. That's pretty cool, but more about that in the article. That's definitely my favorite feature of new Angular release, and I'm really glad I could finally use it and share it with you. Signals is something that we use in host directives a lot, because one of the issue with host directives is that it's hard to control them from inside the host. You have to inject them and update their properties manually. And for that, we added a little helper called TUI directive binding. You pass the directive you want to inject, the property you want to control, and value for it, and it creates a signal that you can easily set or maybe use computed to effectively control it declaratively. And our abstract TUI control class that we used in all of our controls is now deprecated and moved to legacy. And instead, we have a new abstract class called TUI control. It's a control value accessor that we base our components on, that now uses signals a lot for simplification of code. It's much simpler and cleaner than the previous one. Also, abstract TUI controller is gone. I remember Roman wrote an article about it. Directive that controls something down the line in the DI tree. Basically, it was needed because we need to change detection kickstart when they change something, and it had an RxJS stream that notifies the consumer that something has changed, and we call mark for check on change detector ref. But now with signals, it's all done automatically, so we no longer need it. One pretty cool thing is toSignal wrapper that you can use with observables, and it allows you to use declarative host binding on reactive values on observables. This is very cool, and we use it quite often. Something like that we previously had hack around, but now it's finally there, and I really like how much simpler it looks. Also, getters can now be changed to computed, which is a performance improvement, because they only execute when they need to, when their dependencies changed. And we have to wait for signal inputs to completely embrace that thing, and also signal view and content queries. I don't know if you're familiar with that creature over there. It's called Ždun. It's some sculpture showcasing somebody who is patiently waiting. So that's us for now. And the rest of features that Angular 16 brought us, we now use inject everywhere. And instead of inject decorator, so all the dependencies are now injected outside of constructor. It's pretty cool. We use protected on all the things that we only need in template. So that allows us to hide some things that were previously public, but we didn't want you to use them because they are only there for the templates. Now it's protected. So it's easier for us to change because a lot of things are now out of public API. Self-closing tags that I think I already mentioned. And also inputs have transforms now, required values. It's also pretty cool and improving DX. And one sad thing to see destroy service go, it's a little service to unsubscribe from observables. We used it a lot. It was very, very simple, very idiomatic to Angular. It's a proper way to unsubscribe. And now it's just shipped out of the box with take until destroyed operator. So we are saying bye-bye to destroy service, something that was heavily used in our app. And templates now allow us to pass injector, and that means you no longer have to pass the active zone inside your dropdowns to keep track of it, because it can automatically be resolved through DI, and that's a great news. So this thing is I'm happy to say bye to, because it was quite a headache to configure nested dropdowns before. Now it's very, very simple. And also TypeScript 5+, which means we can use new ECMAScript decorators and improved typings, and that's also a great improvement. Now, in terms of micro-frontends, all of our imports now use the most direct entry point as possible, even inside the same package and across packages. So previously, if we were using something from the CDK package in core package, we would just import them directly from the top level entry point. Because we have a lot of secondary entry points, it was all broken down to, and it was tree shaken effectively. So it was not a problem with tree shaking. We did benchmarking, and it was just as good as if you were importing them from the deepest possible entry point. But if you're using micro-frontends, you want to try to share a library across other apps that use your host. And if some of our components were importing from the top level, then micro-frontend infrastructure didn't know which code it can just tree shake, and it would get the entire Taiga UI library there. And now all our components using deep imports, so that should improve tree shaking for micro-frontend apps significantly. And the last thing is migrations. It's pretty easy to migrate. If you're using NX, you call NX migrate. If you're using Angular CLI, you call ng update, and it should run all our scripts there. Of course, you might face some issues there, and some things might not be that easily migrated. In that cases, our script will try to add a to-do in the code to show you what has changed and how you should manually address that. And if you have some issues with the script, feel free to let us know. We keep improving it over the early stage of 4.0, because a lot of more apps try it and find some things that we might missed when we wrote those migration scripts. So if you can run the migration script on your app and see if there are any issues and share it with us, you will be doing a great service to everybody that comes after you, because we will improve the script and it will be easier for them to migrate. So please try that and let us know how it went for you. And the last part is read more section. These are 3 articles that are related to this presentation and this Taiga release. I recommend you read them. It's quite helpful there. Some knowledge that I think probably was not that well shared across Angular tech writing. These are topics that are not exposed enough, I think, and I'm glad that I had time to write about that. Roman will share the links to those articles in the translation. So
yeah, so you can find them all in stream description, and I can actually send it to the chat as well.
All right, so that's the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to show around in our demo portal and show other things, but let's probably check some questions that might be there in chat already.
All right. There are some questions. So the first question was, why is such a structure used for new types of directives, like keeping these styles in a separate component and then injecting them inside the directive as two with styles?
Yeah, that's the thing, because you cannot bundle any styles with directives. It's one of the most requested Angular feature to allow directives to bundle styles, because currently, if our button is a directive, we still need to apply some styles to it. And not every style can be applied in line in host. So for example, hover styles or keyframes or some other style rules that can only be in a style sheet and not in line. We cannot use them in directives. So instead, we made a little pattern there. You make a simple component with not anything at all, and it's unencapsulated, so the styles don't get encapsulation there. You put all those styles there, and it's a standalone component that is instantiated when directive is used with that little helper with styles, and those styles get into head, and that way we can distribute styles together with directives, and they are tree shakeable. It's easy to attach them. It's not like you will have to put them in a global style somewhere. So that's a cool pattern there. In my last article about host directives, I gave a little overview of this feature, so you can check it out there. And I think it could be helpful for you as well, because like I said, it's one of the most requested feature. I think there's 100 likes there, and no official solution from the Angular team yet. So this is something that can improve your experience there with just a few lines of code. So check it out.
All right. And there are a couple of questions about legacy package. Actually, what is the migration plan to the components listed as legacy? Will it be progressive through version 4, or will we have it to wait for version 5?
Yeah, it would be progressive. So once we finalize the specs for those new components, we will implement them based on the new text field. And once it's finalized and implemented, we will deprecate the legacy version of it and suggest everybody to use the new one. And if possible, probably possible, we will write a migration script for it.
Well, the next question is, what is this host class used for inside the component styles, like host class do something styles?
Are you referring to source code or something like that? You mean host with parentheses?
It's host
Semicolon.
in styles.
Yeah. Well, if it's an encapsulated styles in Angular, you can write semicolon host to apply styles to this host, and with the particular classes on it, you can manipulate states. For example, like if you want to select an element and show that it's selected, you can use a Boolean input selected and host bind it to a class selected and then change the color there. I'm not really sure if that's the question you meant.
All right, yeah. I see that I'm very quietly audible, so I think I need to add some additional voice.
I don't know, I can hear you well.
Maybe yeah, I hope so. Maybe there is some issue with the stream. Maybe I can make it so. Please let me know if something changed. So, or maybe I need to make it more louder. And Alexander that asked the question about host class, please, if you have, if you didn't get your answer, please send it again. All right. What about Taiga UI with Tailwind?
I know a lot of people use it with Tailwind. At least in Discord, people often mention that, so there shouldn't be any problem there, especially now when there's a simplified DOM structure of components. It should be even easier to use with some CSS layout library like that.
All right, German. I see you say I quietly audible compared to Alexander, so please let me know if I can make Alex a bit quieter, or should I make myself more louder? And the next question is, I've been using zoneless with Taiga and everything works well. And do you have any plans to remove zone from the dependency totally to reduce bundle size? And yeah, there are a couple of questions.
Yeah, I think we don't really rely on zone at all. We use ng-zone from Angular, and I think if you use zoneless, it just provides an empty implementation for that class that doesn't do anything. So if it works for you, fine, that's great. And we will definitely support zoneless officially and test it everywhere in the 4 major version. And then the version 3, I believe, had some issues there, and we will not be supporting zoneless in previous major release.
Well, there is a good one. What makes Taiga UI unique, and when devs should consider using it over the other UI libraries choices for Angular?
Yeah, I don't really like that question, even though it's been asked quite a lot. The problem why I don't like it is because I don't really investigate much into source code of other libraries. And I've been working on Taiga for like 5+ years. And I really like the internal structure of it, the source code there. I can try to compare it with like material or something and say that there's a smaller bundle size, there's less code there, and it's more idiomatic to Angular approach, uses best practices for dependency injection, all that. But it's really hard to compare. I know that the benefit is there's a lot of components. Like, for example, there are more than material has. And the cool thing about Taiga is that it's very decomposed, because you can, if you don't have a component, for example, that you need, you can just plug a few smaller components together easily and create what you need. Like just today, I needed to make a drop-down button that works as a control. So it basically like a select component, but instead of input, there's a button. And it was so easy to do with host directives and all that I needed to just use, I think, two lines of code to create this new directive. It's coming to Taiga 4 soon, but it's a good example of you being able to create what you need with very few extra steps out of those small components there. So Taiga is, if you like material CDK, for example, the lowest level library that allows you to create your own things based on the abstractions. So Taiga is a lot like that. Taiga is a low-level library. It doesn't have like huge components for layout and stuff like that, but it provides you with very easy to customize, flexible little pieces that you can stitch together and get what you need.
All right, and the next question is Taiga UI accepting pull requests right now from community?
Yes, and we also have a badge, a label there called contributions welcome. You can go to issues and try to filter them by the label. Every now and then we go over the new issues and mark those that are not that hard to understand with that label, so you can come again and see if there's something you'd like to try. Sometimes when we see how the issue is fixed but don't yet have time to do it, we can explain it in a comment in the issue, like what it's going to take to address that issue, and put that label there so people can come and help us out.
Yeah, right now there are 9 issues with the label contributions welcome, and yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot
and
of issues called triage needed, the ones that I need to get to, and maybe
98 are
add some
closed.
more there.
Yeah, it's very cool that there are 98 issues that are closed with this page. I hope all of them were from community.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remove badge.
I add
when
a
it's
community contribution badge when the issue is closed, so you can try that.
great.
But maybe I missed some. I don't know.
All right. Yeah, here I sent.
I believe we have more than 150 contributors in the project overall. So I'm very happy to see that people come and help us, even if it's just like a little documentation improvements. That's always a pleasant thing to do, to communicate with community, to interact with people, and see that it's something that helps them, maybe inspect the source code and improve their knowledge, and they share it with us with their help, and they show interest in the library. So I'm very happy to be working full time on the open source project, and try to promote this idea to everybody who is considering it. Pushing your code into open source is an exciting thing to do, and there are a lot of benefits there for the company. So that's a cool thing.
For sure. So the next question is about input phone. It will be great to think of a solution to avoid users scrolling through all the countries to select one. Maybe it can recognize the country as user types the phone number.
Yeah, that's actually a cool thing that just today somebody from community created a pull request to add a filtering input there. So when you open the drop down, you will be able to type country name or the country code, and it would automatically filter all the countries there. And that's a nice tie into the previous question. So it's somebody from the community just came and implemented a pretty significant feature there. It's on the review now because there are a few things I want a little bit changed there to improve, but generally it's something that's coming soon.
And the next question is about Safari. How much do you love making things work well with Safari?
Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that it's something that I really, really hate. I mean, other than Safari, there's zero sources of stress and anger in my work, but every now and then Safari just comes and craps all over the experience. So yeah, it's unfortunate that we still have to use it everywhere, and it's not possible to change the browser on iOS devices. For anybody who here doesn't know, all the browsers on iOS devices are Safari, with just a paper bag above their head to look like it's something else. But maybe the European Digital Marketing Act, or how it's called, they're trying to push Apple to allow other browsers there, and hopefully it's something that is coming. But for now, if you don't want to support Safari, you have to like cut off all the rich people from your app, and that's not possible.
Well, there is no question but feedback that it's great improvement in the icon component. And the next question is about new components. What new components would you like to see, or do you plan to implement in the Taiga UI in the future?
For now, we mostly want to focus on mobile views of some components. So there's a huge effort on the design part of our team to make our components work well on desktop and on mobile devices, to add some particular logic specific for mobile users, and I can show you a little bit of that on the demo portal. So there's not really many new components that are already designed and are coming soon, more like improvements to the current components. And once the designs are there, we keep implementing them. Another focus that we have for the future is the layout package. There's a new package coming in Taiga 4. It's called layout, and there are some components that help you create more general layout stuff. So, for example, there are cards that are typical for mobile devices. You saw them on the screenshots before. Right now, I'm working on some sort of easy to set up block for filtering tables where you can type some search query, select like dates that you're interested in, maybe other controls to filter a huge table. So some things like that, like more of a style-based components for the general layout is something we want to expand into because right now we have a lot of low-level atomic components, but like I said, not that much is there for general layout of the app. So that's something we would like to focus on as well.
All right. Thanks. And I think right now we need to make one more this 10-second break to reload our coding tab.
Yeah, sure. And I think we can take a break in answering questions for a while, and I can show you the experimental package and new stuff that is there, and then continue answering questions.
All right. So let me finish this call and show the background tab.
А ты сможешь стримить-то?
Yes. Okay, I think you can see. Okay, let's wait for a moment that we are set up, and then you can continue. Yeah, I see us.
I think it's working.
It's great.
Yeah, so while I was there, I saw the actual question about the host class, and that's there just to fool Angular into thinking it's a unique component, because if components do not have anything that differs between them in metadata, it would spawn warnings that doesn't know if it's a different component and that it cannot create the host attribute for it with unique number. So that's just technical little thing there. Don't worry about it. All right. So this is Taiga 4 and this is Taiga 3. And I wanted to go over the experimental package because these are the things that are now available for you. So first thing is action bar. It is something with actions when you work with table, for example, and select multiple items. We previously had a table bar that worked similarly, but this is now the updated design for it. It's easier to use. easier to customize. So that's a cool new thing. Don't worry about the experimental here. I mean, I'm showing it on the version 3 just because they're all in the same place here, and in 4.0 I would have to look for them in various places. So next thing is that I would like to show the cards. The example I told you about, that is part of layout component, layout package. So these are typical cards that you can see in mobile devices and apps. There are two. The large one, that is something you can make it as big as you want, with buttons, labels, and all that, avatars, and they can be interactive, like this one, for example. It's a link. That's another cool thing, that you can put a card attribute on buttons and links. This one is a button, not a link, and that would make the button look like the card. So you don't have to put clicks on divs like that, or you can have links that look like cards. That's really cool to use semantic DOM elements for everything. Like you can make links that look like buttons and buttons that look like links. So visually they look like you want them, and they act like they're supposed to because they are the correct element for it. It's helpful for keyboard navigation. It's helpful for assistive technologies, and that's the good practice there. And there's a smaller one, card medium. These are those little cards that you can use in, for example, mobile apps that showcase particular like stocks or discounts and all that. You can use those fade effects there. It's also a new feature of Taiga, the special directive that allows overflown text to be faded out. It can be selectable. So basically they're using checkbox input inside. You can check out all those examples. And what did I want to say about them as well? Don't really remember. Anyway, there's another component that is part of layout package, is called cell. That's something that is quite often used on the interface to show a list of actions or items or anything like that. And the cool thing about it, this one, is that you don't really need to play with CSS at all to get them look cool. So you can have avatars with badges there, titles, subtitles. You see it's a label, so when I click it, the toggle, the switch is toggled. It can have a lot of other things on the left side. It can be checkboxes, create cards, images, avatars, progress, circles, a lot of other things on the right side. It can also be a button or a link, like this one. This is a link, and it's easy to set up. So you can create some decent looking interfaces even if you don't have much experience as a designer. So that's a cool thing. You can have drop down actions there. You can have them appear on hover. Just be careful with mobile devices. You don't want to hide some items from users on those. And it can be used in selects, like this is the cell inside a control. That's another cool thing. And the checkboxes are updated, which I like very much. Previously it was a 2 checkbox component, but now it's something much cooler. It's just an input with a checkbox directive, and the inputs that are checkboxes or radio buttons allow you to use pseudo elements before and after, so that you can use icons inside them and it's still just a single DOM element. It's very good because you don't have to expose that native input there for people to put like IDs or other native attributes on. That's another good change that we try to implement across other components as well, the simplified DOM structure. And you see this one is a web version, this one looks like Android checkbox, this one looks like iOS checkbox. and it's much cooler in switches, which was called toggle in 3. So you see these are web version of toggles switches. These are Android and these are iOS. It's pretty cool. Looks a lot like the native one. And like I said, this allows us. This is allowed because we use new approach to icons with CSS masking, and I think I linked in my last article a Stack Blitz with a lot of cool examples of how you can use CSS masks. So if you head to that article later, you can check it out. And let's see what else is here. The fade effect that I told you about. It's easy to use with a single directive called toFade, and it can be even multi-line like that. This is a bit more complex to set up because you need to set the line height and offset of the fade, but these are just simple inputs that you can use. And it also works vertically, so you can use it like that. The icon I already told you about. Navigation is one of the components that I talked about in terms of layout. So this is a particular set of components for navigation to be used in some admin panels that are dense with content, so everything's quite small there. There's not much spacing. It's used for technical portals, and I know right now some people in our team working on a set of admin panels made with Taiga to showcase all the features, and one of them will be using this component as a base for like admin panels with a lot of content there, like GitLab portal, or some admin panel for reports, management of servers, and like that. All right, so what else? The segmented control. That's a cool thing that looks like iOS tab bar. I think it's called segmented control there. And it can be used with buttons, can be used with checkboxes, I mean radio buttons, so it's automatically switched. It can be used with links, and the router link active will be used to determine which one of them is seen right now. So that's a cool thing. Another thing I really liked is block. I don't think it's in 3, but it's in 4. Let's check it out. So it's a basic component which you can use with a lot of other ones like checkboxes, radio buttons. It can be used like that, where the radio button is not visible, and you can customize it with appearance directives. So you can see this one is a white block appearance, which looks a lot like checkbox. And this is the secondary appearance, which uses the gray background. And you see that when I hover it and press it, it responds with feedback, visual feedback. You can use switches there. And a similar thing is available in chips, which is the replacement for tags. You see they look like tags, but they are much more than what you were able to do with tags before. They can be buttons, they can contain buttons inside. They can also work like checkboxes, radio boxes. They can be labels for other checkboxes, like the block element I showed you before. You can use different appearances like accent, and you can even have text inputs act like chips. That's pretty cool. All right, so what else is there? I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, the swipe actions is a cool thing for your mobile device. It wouldn't work for me like that, but maybe if I use mobile emulation, it would work. Let me refresh it. Oh, there it is. It's a little narrow. Let's see something bigger like that. So it's a typical pattern for items on mobile. You swipe it and it showcases actions that you can do. You can open multiple. Oh, sorry. You can open multiple items like that, or you can use auto close. like this. So I drag one, and if I drag another one, closes the first one. You can have dynamic actions added on fly, so that's an interesting thing. And this is example how you can do the fallback for desktop. So this is mobile version, and if we open it on the desktop, you can just put a drop down there with all those actions. That's how you can implement the same same amount of actions, but with device specific experience. What else? What else? What else? There's a few small components like compass that you can use on maps, or a comment, a little badge with an arrow showing in the direction of your choosing. There's a pin you can also use on maps. It can be toggled on and off. There's a new rating component which has more fluid animations there. And there's a sensitive directive that allows you to hide behind such masks some sensitive content, like your balance in your bank account, or it can be used on sections of elements or entire elements, and it automatically uses proper color. That's again thanks to masking. That's a pretty cool feature. And that's probably it for the most of the experimental package that I want to show you. And the cool thing about switching to directives rather than components is because we do not have any internal DOM structure, we don't really need much of Angular to do these things. And most of what Angular does is control the attributes binding to set up particular behavior, like for, I don't know, group. Let me show you. So there's a group. It can be horizontal or it can be vertical. And the way it is determined is through a data attribute on the element. So it's data orientation horizontal or data orientation vertical. And this is all that Angular does there for us. And that's why what I did is move those styles for those components into a separate place that you can hook with your apps like this. So you can import Taiga, core, styles, components, appearance, button, icon, and all that inside your app that may not be even using Angular at all. And this is what you can
let's
get.
Scale it a bit. I think it's hard to read the code.
Sure. And let's hide this one. Right.
Yeah.
So you can import
now
them separately, and you can use them in your apps without JavaScript at all. So it's just the CSS that styles all those things. You see their group with radio buttons, the switches there, buttons, links, icons, and pin is there. So all of those components can be used without Angular at all. It's a little bit difficult to configure them because you don't have host directives. You have to apply everything manually. So let's take a look at how notifications look. It applies icons directive. It applies appearance directive. It sets particular appearance of info, that blue, light blue appearance. Then you have to define the icon start. This one is going to our assets there, but you can do it any way you like. It's basically just a public name of the CSS variable. And you can use title, subtitle there to style it like that. You can use progress bar, native one. So if you'd like, you could use it. You could use it in maybe React app, but it would look like Taiga, even if it's an Angular library. There's a chip there. So that's something that I really like, because this allows us to maybe reuse those styles in some bundle sensitive apps, like a login screen that you want to load instantly, so it can be just styles there. That's a cool thing. And let me show you how you can take a look at those styles. So let's go to the GitHub. For example, we go to core, to styles, and to components. Let's zoom in. So there's a button file. You can take a look. There's a comment that explains this component. It shows you the selectors that you have to use, gives a little bit of description, shows all the data attributes that are like public API with default value and the options that you have there. Shows you how to use it, and also tells you where you can also go to see other components that are similar to that one. And all this is it just are styles that you can just import into your app. I mean, they are in less, so you would have to add some pipeline to process less into CSS, but maybe this is something we will improve later on and publish already processed styles. That's just something I wanted to swag with. So this is an example of basic Taiga components without Angular at all. All right, so I think I presented what I wanted. Let's go back to questions.
Should we share this example, maybe this tag blitz?
Yeah, sure. We can add them to.
Yeah, you can send it to me, and
Yeah, I will.
redirect it in chat right now. All right, let's check new questions. Yeah, there is one more feedback by Angular Bros channel that your article is fire, and everyone make sure to have a read. All right, I see the next question about click.prevent, but actually you can find a link to Taiga family ng event plugins in several messages above. Actually, I can send it one more time.
Yeah, there are 3 articles that I mentioned in the last slide.
I think it's a question about ng event plugin library.
Yeah, the first article in that list was about event plugin.
It's about event manager.
So you can take a look. So it explains this whole feature.
For sure.
Really concise overview, so check it out.
Yeah, check the article, and then you can go to this ng event plugin and give a star in GitHub. Well, what do we have next? Several messages with joy about destroy service, and I can assume version 5 will include Angular 17 signal inputs and other Angular goodness, but is there any future roadmap for version 5?
We already created the RFC discussion in our GitHub, where we try to just dump a list of things we'd like to do in the next major release, some breaking changes there, so that we don't forget them. You're welcome to discuss, maybe add something if you like to see, and maybe comment on the changes we plan, if there's something for you to add.
All right, and if I see it right, there are no questions more. So if you want to ask anything, please send your questions right now, so we can answer it.
Yeah, one other thing that we changed when we updated the next major version is we bumped a little bit the browser support. So Taiga 3 worked with Safari 12, and Taiga 4 works with Safari 13. So that's a huge relief, because finally we at least have like resize observer natively. So that's a good thing, and probably we will revisit the browser support in the next major release as well, so that we don't bump minimal browser version during minor releases. This is something like a breaking change, so we will probably review those lists against our user base every 6 months or so, and see what browsers we can ditch.
Alright, and I see a new message. Angular is going into the direction of going RxJS optional. It would be really cool for Taiga to be less dependent on RxJS too.
With signals, it's probably possible because many things in Taiga are not that much dependent on RxJS. I'm not sure if Angular will be able to drop a RxJS dependency completely, and also RxJS is very tree shakeable and tiny, so I don't see it as an issue. And we will continue to use the best tools at our disposal to do things. So if RxJS is something that works great for our needs, it's going to be there. I don't see that it's something that we need to try to avoid. But signals sometimes really help. So maybe not all the places where we currently have RxJS will remain that way.
All right. So I don't see any other questions. Actually, I don't know. We can wait maybe half a minute if someone wants to ask anything else. And let's check how many views do we have. Yeah, I see we have 100 views today in total. So 100 people come to.
Yeah, that call would be there as a recording later for you to check out or to share with friends if you would like to tell somebody about new features in Taiga that they might not know. Or probably we'll have some more streams if we have topics to discuss. So don't forget to join our channels, our communities like Discord, Telegram, or follow us on X, on Twitter.
Do you have a direct link to Discord with Taiga channel?
I don't think it's possible to do to make that link.
I
think it's just Angular Discord.
I can send you our Telegram community. There you can find support about Taiga UI and all this Taiga family libraries in both Russian and English. But mostly Russian speaking audience. And we also have this Angular Discord service channel, but I can send you the link, this invite link to this Discord server as well. And after you join this Discord server, you can find Taiga UI channel there, one of many channels about Angular. Well, I see a new question. Maybe you can comment on the I can see it right now.
On the whole hydration SSRs.
Whole hydration.
Yeah. I expressed my concerns about the direction Angular is going. So the plan there is to deprecate element ref and instead introduce new API called DOM-ref, which would not be available on the server because the Angular team don't want to emulate DOM on the backend. Currently, it's something that is done with Domino library. Domino is a DOM in Node. It's something that Angular SSR uses to emulate DOM on the server. And it has its issues, sure. So Angular team wants to move away from that. And most of the things for like business logic is not dependent on DOM elements. So it's not a big deal for many apps, but it's quite a big deal for us, for a low-level library that uses DOM API heavily. And I expressed a lot of concerns there. Basically, the consensus there is something that we can live with, if that's what the team goes with, that this new API will just allow us to get the DOM element immediately, not inside the hook that was originally planned. And if we're on the server, it would just return null. That's okay, I guess. It's not breaking that much. Still, I would love to write the code one way and have it work in the server side and the client side, but it's mostly the same with that new approach, if that's what they're going with. So it's just a discussion at this point. Let's see about that. And I'm heavily against that new DOM ref because it basically requires us to first rely on the order of execution. We will be able to access DOM elements only inside after renderer hooks, which I don't like. It's imperative and it's branching our code base. That's not clear. And initially they wanted it to throw if we access it in the wrong time, but probably there will be some helper to allow us to get the element without throwing initially, I mean, in constructor or something like that. So I think my concerns are addressed in the final comment there, but I don't know if it's something that will stay as the final solution.
All right. I don't see any new questions or comments, so I think there was a lot of time to write anything, and I think we can finish here. So.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. It was really a pleasure to share this exciting news with you. I'm really happy that we finally managed to make that push to release the next major version. Like I said, it took us 8 months, I guess, to finally prepare everything there. And we tried to make the migration scripts as complete as possible, so try them out. And if you have any issues there, Roman sent a lot of channels that you can contact us with, and don't hesitate to write us.
Yep. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Bye everyone.